Hi guys, we're in for a hot one, so I wanted to come out here early and show you what looks good in the garden. I'm still waiting on a lot of flowers, but my Coleus is continuing to give me great color in the garden. And at first I really didn't like this combination of Coleus and geranium, but I'm really liking it now. I think it provides a really nice contrast. And then my mother plant over here is flushing out, and everywhere I cut it, it has smaller leaves, and I really like the way that looks. That's the one that gave me all the cuttings for the rest of my Coleus, except for the dark purple one. But I'm really happy with the way the Coleus is looking, and the geraniums are performing well, as they always do, in the heat. And here's another batch of Coleus and geraniums. I'm going to be doing this every year, guys. I just love the combination. And then my portulaca is also in bloom. That is the moss rose, and those were grown from seed. And what I love about them is they're such a beautiful mix of colors. Look at some of the blooms on that, guys. Just all different colors. And at some point I came along and kind of pinched them back so that they would do some more branching. I don't know if you can see that, but some of these have more branches. So I'm hoping for a kind of a fuller structure there after I did my pinching. And over here I have my Newly Noir Coleus and my shadow there, but I noticed it has some little bugs on it, grasshoppers, and I happen to think they're kind of beautiful in themselves, so they're not completely decimating the plant. I'm just going to leave it alone, and if they're enjoying it, so be it. But the alyssum I tucked in there that I found out in the landscape is doing well, and it looks like, I think this is a sweet pea. This is one of the flowers I grew, and I popped it in there. And it's looking really pretty and blooming. And around the corner here, I think this was the Gossyphilia, which is just the baby's breath, and that's kind of spilling out the end. So those were part of my 99-cent flowers. Oh, here's another one of the little green bugs. They almost look like little grasshoppers, but I don't know. I think that's part of the magical part of having a garden, is seeing what creatures come and enjoy your plants. And if you hear any gurgling in the background, it's my little homemade solar fountain here. It's made out of a bucket, and I just have the solar panel there, and it's been such a sunny week. It's been going all week. So anytime the sun hits the panel, I have this nice sound in the background. And the Topiary Garden's doing well. These are the Topiaries I made last year, and they're looking really nice. It's hard for me to see in the sun how well I'm showing you everything, so I hope everything's in the picture, guys. But those, especially the two on the left, are doing really well. And I do have some garlic chives growing, and I was happy to see that a lot of the seed packet did germinate. This part of the deck gets more shade until midday, but I have my little tabletop garden, and I think this is called an amulary. I found this at a thrift shop. I just thought that was pretty to put in my little tabletop forest. So that's looking well, and these were all little finds that I found in my garden, just little evergreens that are growing like tiny trees. So I call that my tabletop forest. And then I'm so thrilled up here. These are cuttings. The pink ones are cuttings from my other geraniums, and then the white ones were from last year. But I love how the two colors of geraniums look hanging in one pot, and I'm trying to remember to water that one, because hanging pots do dry out faster. And then underneath I have my Ponytail Palms, which are half of the day shaded and half of the day well, maybe a third of the day in the sun, and they are really thriving. They're really doing well. They're very happy to be out, and their bulbs are really getting big. Look at the size of this one, guys. I'll take that leaf out, but look at the size of that. It's a Caudisiform plant, and it stores water. It's like a little water storage tank. So I think it's prompted to draw water up when it's very hot. A survival mechanism. And then over here by the air conditioner, I'll give you a good view of my blue Dazzling Kale. And that has done so well, I think because it gets shade and then a little bit of afternoon sun. But it is beautiful, and unlike some of the other kales in my garden, it's remained untouched. But the color truly is gorgeous. It's a blue-green. And this is one of my favorite little corners with the begonia and the Coleus. And I've moved over a couple of little boxwood cuttings that I took 2 years ago. They need a little trimming, but I'm going to wait till a cooler period to do it. But isn't this a pretty little combination, guys? I love all my groupings of plants. Over here, still in the shade, is a little topiary garden I've been working on. I do have some Coleus and some geranium over here. I'm really crazy about this color. I think this is some type of like lemon lime Coleus. It's also from my mother plant, which I cut on. And look, guys, I got a whole pot of it. Isn't that amazing? That mother plant gave me all the Coleus in my container gardens. I'm just so thrilled with it. And like I said, it gives you color even when things aren't blooming. But I did some repotting, and I got a couple of new pots. I got some of the white pots are new. This big one down here, very pretty, and this one in the back. And then that white one, which has my lemon tree. That one lives inside during the winter, the tree. I've got some boxwoods in the middle, and these were just, when I pinched off my other moss rose, I just popped them in here, and they're actually doing even better than the mother plant. So it's so easy to take little cuttings when you pinch. But my topiaries, even though they look a little puny, they're brand new, they're babies. They seem to be happy in this spot. So I am really thrilled with this new baby garden. Look at my quick fire hydrangeas. They're just magnificent, and the bees are loving them. My hostas are in bloom. My variegated hostas have beautiful purple, pale purple flower spikes. But my quick fire hydrangeas are stealing the show over here. And if I didn't mention it before, I took out some of those playground balls and put in some rocks. And I think that looks more natural, especially since the rocks really match the shade of the bird bath. But it's doing the trick as well. It's keeping some of the predatorial birds from washing their kill in there, and that was my goal. Also, I don't want smaller bugs to drown in there, especially the bees, so they can climb out on the rocks. But look, guys, look at how busy my quick fire hydrangea are. They are just covered with bees and pollinators, and they start out white and they fade to this kind of dusty pink. They're so pretty. This bloom has been out for a while, so let me show you how that looks. I hope you can see the color on those. Isn't that beautiful? And like I said, the bees are just loving it. And this one is spectacular. This is another plant I've been cutting off of quite often, and this is my Tradiscandia. And I have put these cuttings out front. They're deer proof, And I've put them in a couple other pots, and I basically cut off all of the old growth, and the new growth is so pretty and full, but I used the old growth to make new cuttings, and now that old growth is putting off more new growth that looks like this. So this is a house plant too. I bring this in the winter. So this has been a really pretty purple plant that I've used all around my garden. And here's an example of some of the Tradiscandia that I planted. And that should fill out the pot, but that's just a little extra that I had that I popped in there, and it seems to have taken root. This was lavender I grew. My son gave me a package of lavender seeds, and I grew that last year, and I can only grow them in pots because they need really good drainage. The Guacamole Hostas that I planted last year seem to be doing well. I love that color. It's just beautiful, and it really does look like a guacamole green. This has been my prettiest hydrangea this year, and I was going to cut some blooms to bring in, but it looks so pretty every time I look out the window. I think I'm going to leave it in the garden to enjoy. But it has done really well. And I have 2 more of these in a more shaded location. And like I said, I do think hydrangeas need a bit of sun in order to produce beautiful blooms. But this is the type that blooms on new wood. So it was not affected by the late frosts like some of my heirloom hydrangeas are. And it's right next to a beautiful big variegated hosta with these beautiful purple spikes. So this little corner looks really pretty at the moment. A few of the daylilies are blooming. They're pretty reliable in the heat of the summer. So it's nice to see them starting to open up, put on a show. That's a gorgeous dark orange one. And I added a couple of turquoise ceramic turtles. Looks like they're on a date here, and I put them in front of this garden. I think they look cute. I like to add a little garden decorations here and there in moderation. Here's a couple more daylilies starting their show. I love to see a pop of orange around the garden, and I do have daylilies everywhere. So my old type of hydrangea hasn't done well. This is the type that blooms on old wood, and with some of the surprise late frosts we had, I think the buds got nipped. So I have about 4 blooms on there, and I don't really see any other buds, so this just isn't going to be a good year. And I did have a picture come up on my Facebook showing me a glorious display of blooms last year. So this is the type of hydrangea that really depends on the weather from year to year. And this just wasn't a good year. Like I said, we had those late surprise frosts. And I had to cut back some of my rambunctious sedum. That's like a stone crop, and it was taking over, so I just cut it back, and it's looking better in that proportion. But guys, look at how well this garden's doing. This is my triangle garden, and I can't wait for these zinnias to start blooming. But I've been fussing over these zinnias, making sure they have water every single day, especially now that it's getting hot. But these zinnia seedlings are doing well, and the yarrow in the back is blooming. It's a white yarrow, and that is a really tough plant, which I haven't had to do too much with. I did have to cut it back because it was infringing on my zinnia seedlings, so that was a little bit of maintenance for them. But the salvia across the front is still doing really well. And then behind it I have marigolds interchanging with some purple opal basil. And that was grown from seed. The marigolds I bought as little plant starts, but the purple opal basil's really taking off, as it usually does in the heat of the summer. This one's kind of interesting. It's got variegated leaves, but I thought that would look really pretty, the purple and orange mixed together. And then the zinnias are multicolored, and it was actually a box of zinnias from the dollar store. So I think I paid $1.25, and I just kind of sprinkled them out, and they all came up in one clump. And once they looked strong enough, I went ahead and spread them out to where I wanted them. So I'm really thrilled with that. For $1.25, I'm hoping to have a good color show. And again, they get really strong when the heat of the summer kicks in, which it has. And then down here, I'm excited to see, these are ageratum coming up from seed. I had an ageratum plant here last year, and it has obviously dropped some seed. These two are zinnias here, but the ones down here with the ruffly edges are ageratums coming up, some seedlings. So I hope those bloom for me, and they're really pretty in flower arrangements. My San Marzanos have quite a few groupings of tomatoes that are green, and they'll be ripening up. And they're the first ones that I have that have thrown off some good tomatoes. I think they'll be the first ones to ripen. I have some more green tomatoes all over this Arkansas Traveler. And looks like I have a big beefsteak growing back there, a couple of them on here. So this tomato garden is starting to really reach some maturity. And I have little baby peppers coming along. Here's a baby pepper right here. Isn't that cute, guys? And it is covered with blossoms, so I'm hoping that I get quite a few of those. Those are bell peppers. This busy garden is full sun much of the day, and the zucchinis really appreciate that. So we've already gotten a few zucchinis out of here, and then we went through kind of a dry spell, and now I think we have some more zucchinis forming. But the one at the end, which is just gorgeous, there's actually two plants in here. This one is a round zucchini, and there's no zucchinis on it right now, but look at the foliage. I think it's so beautiful. It's like a variegated foliage and quite like, you know, very cut out edges. But I think the foliage in itself is just beautiful. Right now it's put off a lot of male blooms, but we have already had one, and they're starting to close because of the heat of the day, but we've already had one of these, and I thought it was really delicious, so I was happy to try that. And then this one, not sure why it's yellow. It is a white zucchini, so I'm not sure if that's the regular color of the foliage or if it could use a different type of nutrient, but I have been fertilizing them. And this was the white zucchini. And we didn't care for it. It was kind of rubbery and more squashy, if that makes sense. It wasn't quite like the other zucchinis that we have grown that are green. We prefer those. And then this one I pruned way back. Some of the leaves were looking quite tattered, but we do have a new zucchini coming in. Right here, you can see the flower is still attached. And another one seems to be growing right next to it. But the new foliage, even though the original foliage got quite beaten up, just by the weather, the new foliage is looking good. So I hope to get some more off of that. And then all throughout here we have some more small tomatoes. And these are my geranium cuttings from last year. These are the red ones that I brought in, and I didn't think they were really going to make it. But some of them did. I would say about half of the cuttings I brought in last year made it. And now, because they enjoy the heat of the summer, they're doing really well. But they're bringing in some pollinators. Someone asked me to update them on my Hydrangea Divisions. And I have 3 of them doing really well here. One of them died. I think it had something to do with where and how I planted it. But these have really taken off, and they're every bit as big as the original plant was. And I don't see any blooms happening, but this is the first year, and I have a feeling that they're working on their root system. So hopefully by next year, or maybe even later in the season, I'll get some flowers from these. This is the Blushing Bride that I divided one plant into 4, and I've ended up with 3. So I wanted to give everybody an update on that. And it is in a partly shady location. Despite being in a morning shaded location, my pumpkin patch is doing pretty well. Actually, I should say, well, I think I see a little pumpkin here. Let me see here. Looks like a little female flower in there. I hope you can see it, just right under there. Very cute. It's got a little bloom on it, and I think that might open up tomorrow, so I'll have to keep an eye on it. I think that's a pumpkin, but my honeyboat Delicata squash has already made one little squash here. It's very cute. I have it covered. I don't know what might come along and eat it, but it's a very cute little honeyboat Delicata growing along. And we do have rabbits and things, so I'm hoping to protect it from that. But back here I had 2 more female flowers, and I tried to pollinate those this morning, so we'll see if those make fruit. And I pollinated this one. I wasn't sure whether this was a male or female, but we'll see what happens there. So I hopefully will get at least one honeyboat Delicata squash. And again, these plants would probably prefer more sun. But it is kind of fun to see how the pumpkin and Delicata squash vines just kind of spill out all over the place. And this one has really gone towards the back here, really taken off. And as you can see, the part that's along the ground almost looks even healthier because there's a lot of nutrients in the soil. It's probably setting down roots. I've got lots of figs forming on my 3-year-old fig tree, so I'm excited to see that. They're all over here. And figs are so pretty. Even if they never gave fruit, they are just such pretty plants. Isn't that a beautiful plant? It's gotten as tall as the fence, so I'm really thrilled to see that plant doing so well. It's very tall. I'm sure it's about 7 feet tall now. And then behind that I have some more vigorous looking zucchini. And I do have one zucchini along here. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if you can see that. Oh, there it is. It's behind. It's got the blossom on it. This one looks like a white zucchini. But you know, it's okay if I get the white zucchinis because I'm making some zucchini bread out of it. So guys, thanks so much for joining me before the heat of the day sets in. And I hope you're having fun in your garden. I'll see you next time.